Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Road to Retirement. I'm Tony Marlette Jr. at Brookside Tax and Financial, joined by Zach Padden at Anselmo Law. Good morning.
Morning, Tony. How are you?
I'm well, man. What do you think? Do we need to change the name of the show? If we call it Road to Retirement and we're talking about legal on here when we bring you on as well, do we need to change the name of the show?
Oh, I mean, we could think of some creative names, but it does work well because a lot of times people are retiring when they come to us.
This is true. And this works both for financial and legal as well. Um, that brings us a little bit today towards what we wanted to talk about, which is how we help our younger clientele. And when I mean younger for purposes of this conversation, let's just say under age 50, because I think a lot of times the perception is I don't need financial planning. I don't need legal planning and estate planning because I'm not ready to retire for the financial planning and I'm not ready to die for the estate planning. And those are misconceptions. So I think there's a lot of ways that we do deal with client base primarily over the age of 50. But for those people under the age of 50, there's definitely some ways that we can help.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the things, even, is when you're going to college, a lot of these people don't have anything in place for their parents to help them if they're away and they get sick. You're a new adult. You need to have a healthcare power of attorney because if you can't make your own decisions, you want your parents to be able to step in and say, this is what they want. So basically, from the time you turn 18, you should have some kind of estate and financial planning starting.
Interesting. So, all those college kids out there, uh, think about your parents, especially now, like nowadays, and I can certainly attest to this. People are having kids later in life. Their parents are going to be older by the time their kids go to college. By the time my kids go to college, you've heard me say this, and anybody's heard me say this. I'm going to be like 63. So 63 is not, that old anymore, but at the same time, you're not in your 40s. Like when I went to college, my dad was in his 40s. He was like
Yeah.
my age. I think he was younger than me. So it's definitely a changed dynamic in that aspect. And you want to make sure your loved ones are taken care of. If not, if nothing else, who's paying that college bill for you? Their junior.
Yeah, and that's one of the scary things is your parents don't have control anymore once you turn 18. So this way, at least then they're going to have some peace of mind. If something's wrong, you're traveling, you need help, they can jump in and help you without having to jump through a million hoops.
Sure. Yeah, I think one thing on our side when we work with people under 50, a lot of times people will say, well, as long as you have a 401k, maybe even a taxable brokerage account, you don't really need to pay planning fees, advice fees for the rest of your working life. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think one thing I would say that where we can help people. First of all, not everybody's the same. There are some people in their 30s and 40s that are high earners that want the guidance and the professional help. But I think one way on the financial side and what we've seen in our office combining financial and legal is people who might be in their 30s or 40s that are inheriting assets from their parents or their grandparents. I think that's a big thing.
Yeah. From what I've seen, a lot of these people are in their 30s or 40s. They get this lump sum money and have no idea what to do with it to help their future. They just see it as this nice windfall of money. Instead, they should be thinking, okay, this is making me retire so many years earlier because I can invest this, let it grow, and develop my financial plan to be in a way better place when they're 50, 60. So they're not having to go work the 9 to 5 every day.
Right. And I think they've seen it happen. If you're in your 30s or 40s, maybe your parents passed away young. They've seen it happen. They're not of the belief that, oh, this stuff doesn't happen to me or it can't happen to us. They very much realize that these things can't happen. And I think too, there's a lot of rules around inheriting assets now with both versions of the Secure Act that passed in 2017 and then again in 2020. A lot of new rules, a lot of moving pieces involved in this, and there's still some of it that's not really all that clear. So uh, that's where we come in and at least help people with, hey, this is what you have to do. And then these are unexpected funds in some cases. Imagine being in your 30s or 40s, and all of a sudden, you're saving for your retirement. Your parents pass away, or your mom or your dad passes away early, and they leave you with six figures, or sometimes more. You got to find something to do with that, and in some cases, you got to do it quick.
Yeah. You just don't want to put that money into your savings account and let it sit there. It looks nice when you get that bank statement every month, but other
Yeah,
than that, it's not really doing you much good.
yeah. That's the anchoring to the bank statement. Like you just love to see those balances. Some of our clients just love seeing those balances in their savings account. It represents a lot of security, but it's also not designed to, last a long time, grow. Or imagine if you get your ATM card, somebody, hacks your bank account and you have access to all that. That's pretty scary.
Yeah. And one thing I've noticed is when people start having kids, they don't think about getting an estate plan. The moment you start wanting to have kids or having children, you should think about an estate plan because of one thing and one thing alone: the guardian of your children if something happens to you.
Yep.
Looking at the news now, I mean, there's more and more people passing away in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s than ever before, it seems like. Maybe I'm just noticing it more now, but you want to make sure your kids are protected and they're going to a family member that you trust to raise them, not your crazy uncle.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a good point. I did mine. I did mine with Anselmo and company. And I mean, the big thing to me, I'm around this stuff every day. I knew the importance of it. But I think with you and Nicole and with Kristen, our former paralegal, being a little more proactive about these things, it showed me how much everybody cares too about wanting to make sure that for our clients and in some cases for our employees, that we're able to do these things and put them into place. We had some. I don't think I had anything out of the ordinary. We did the power of attorney, medical, guardianship again, which I think the guardianship, like you said, I would definitely back that up as being the most important piece. You can talk about it, and we've discussed this before. You can talk about who's gonna get your kids when you pass away. You can verbally mention it, but that doesn't mean anything, does it?
No, it goes in front of the judge, and anybody can act sane for a little bit of time and be the person the judge chooses. I mean, it's scary to say, but you may not want that. Your parents could be older and you're like, I don't want them to raise my children because they're out of that age. They shouldn't take on a newborn young children in their 70s. You may
All
want it to be a
right.
sibling.
That's a great point.
I mean, I wouldn't want to burden my parents with children at that
No,
age.
no, and
I would want it to go somewhere else.
right, and they've done their job. My mom and dad and my in-laws, they love watching our kids. They also love being able to go home to their nice, clean, sane house at night that they've worked for years and leave us with all the remnants of the day. And I mean, it's a cycle. So like when my parents were raising all of us, it was pretty chaotic. Eventually it ended, and now we deal with the chaos, and then one day our kids will deal with the chaos. So you're right, it just because they love watching the kids and they love spending time with them and they love the grandkids does not mean that they're willing or even able in some cases to do it. My dad just had knee surgery last week. He's resting on the couch. His mobility is very limited. I can't imagine him chasing after my almost 2-year-old.
No, every day, all
Right,
day, every day. Like
right,
it's not just like you said, the quick babysitting and you give them back.
right.
The one thing I've been seeing on all these basically financial podcasts for when people have kids is you should set up a 529 plan. What are your thoughts on that, Tony?
Yeah, interesting. I'd say 5 years ago, I used to refute that with people. I would say, okay, 529, and I still agree with this to some degree. Your college savings for your kids should not necessarily be a priority. I think your retirement and your contributing to a retirement account up to what your company matches should be a priority. Your emergency savings should be a priority. Paying down debt and non-deductible, or what they call bad debt anyway, should be a priority. And then dollar cost averaging. So contributing to an investment account, whether it's a 401k, a Roth IRA, whatever you have available at work. If you don't have anything, then you can do your own. Those things are the priority. And then, yes, I do think chipping away and saving for college is important. The thing I always tell people, you can always finance college. You cannot finance an emergency, and you can't finance your retirement. So I do think 529s now are a lot more beneficial than they were, say, 5 years ago. I did a 529 for each of my kids. I think 5 years ago, if I had kids, I wouldn't have done one at that time, just because they don't have the advantages they do now. I think the Ohio 529, we're in Ohio, obviously, each state um, has their own. It's got advantages now if you don't use the funds. It's got some different tax advantages. So, and it can go towards a lot more things. If your kids don't go to college, basically anywhere that accepts student aid will take a 529. And I think that's beneficial. So, yes, to answer your question, you should save something for your kids. I still say it should not be at the expense of your savings in your retirement, though.
No, so what you're saying, it sounds like for our viewers, is that they should set aside a little bit each month that way, if they can, so that it just helps grow it and gives them some kind of nest egg for their kids' college education or future.
Yeah, yeah, and that's correct. And then even if grandparents want to contribute, they can always give you the money. You can make the contribution to the plan. And there's custodial accounts too that are not necessarily geared towards anything, that can give a kid a good head start, say when they're 21, which is age of majority in Ohio. The minor or the beneficiary can take the assets at that time and do whatever they want with it. Fund a wedding, put a down payment on a house, buy a car. Once the assets are theirs, as you know, it's theirs, and the custodian can't really do anything about it.
Yeah, and that's one of the scary things is once you turn control over to somebody, you can't tell them how to drive.
Right.
It's their role, and a lot of times parents don't realize that giving their kids the keys to everything at their early 20s or 30s, if something happens to them, it's going to change the way they live their lifestyle. And that's not always the goal parents have.
Right.
So at some point, even thinking about like a trust where you can put parameters in that they're not going to get all the money at once is something that parents should be considering, even if your kids are financially responsible.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. We hear that a lot too. My kids are responsible. Yeah, I'm sure they are. In most cases, they probably are. But like you said before, anybody can, change. When money changes a lot of things, as we've seen. It can change family dynamics in a hurry. And we've
Yeah.
seen a lot of that. I think we've seen too much of it, unfortunately, but it does happen. So I think, just to summarize, under 50, obviously we can still help. I think, and this isn't to say that we can't help you if you're over 50. I think people are aware, when you're in your 50s and 60s and 70s, that we can help with financial planning and estate planning. I think the stereotype is if you're younger, you don't need those kind of things, and it's not necessarily true. Everybody's different. I think the estate planning package that we offer is fantastic at Anselmo, and I think in cases where we're able to help people that have maybe inherited some assets that were unexpected, or helping out people with larger balances built up than most people by the time they're in their 30s or 40s, or higher earners. We've been able to help them with financial and tax strategies too.
Yeah. The nice thing about coming here is you're dealing with the same people. You're not having to jump and figure out what each side's telling you to do because they may not always agree. Here, we look at a comprehensive plan for everything. So we're thinking about your legals, your tax, your financial planning. And I think that's a big benefit to a lot of people is you're coming here just for that. You don't have
Right.
to worry about three different opinions, three different phone calls, and relaying the information to the other sides.
Yeah, I bring this up a lot in previous roles that I had, where I had to refer out somebody for tax help. I had to refer out for an estate plan. I can't tell you, you would know, but I can't tell our listeners how many times I've walked into Zach's office or Chris's office and been like, during a meeting, during an appointment, been like, hey, can we talk a little bit about estate planning? You've done the same. Chris has done the same. So it's nice to have everything all in one place. It's not the same person. We're not all wearing those hats, but it's the same company, or two companies technically, but it's the same building. You come in here, we look at everything all at once under one roof.
Yeah, you want to make sure everybody's understanding each other, because if I see somebody and it looks like they're not helping themselves for retirement, I'll bring Tony in. Or if they're like, I don't know what to do with this lump sum, I'm not going to be the person to give them good advice on that. I'm not a
Right.
financial planner, but Tony is.
Yeah.
So bringing Tony into that meeting is going to help them a lot more than me referring them down the street.
Yep. All right. Very good. Anything else that you want to add?
If you think you need an estate plan, you probably do. So if you're thinking about doing one, reference this podcast, come in for a free consult, and we'll gladly help you think about what your goals and plans are for the future.
Yeah, I'm still biased because I have the Brookside info on here, not the Anselmo, but we can edit that. But I promise, if you call Brookside and you ask for Zach or Chris, even though you called the financial firm, you'll still get Zach or Chris as long as they're available. So look us up online at brooksidetax.com or anselmolaw.com. You can check us out on YouTube, Facebook, or do it the old-fashioned way. Stop in or give us a call. 440-886-3550 for Brookside, and then 440, correct me if I'm wrong, 886-1040 for Anselmo.
216-485-1040.
Oof, I butchered that. I got the
Close.
1040
You
right.
got the 1040 right.
Everything here is 1040.
It's safe.
All right, Zach. Thank you. Thanks for joining us, and give us a call if you need anything, and we look forward to working with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.